Okay, today on the bench we've got this Spaceman. This was made by Nomura in Japan back in 1957. This is the first version, at least the one I'm aware of. They made a lot of different versions of it, different litho, different battery box controllers. Later versions where the gun in the hand like crosses between the two hands and it would raise and lower them. Schilling had a repro version made in China that you could still pick up for a little money, but this particular one, as of this filming, would be 66 years old. So there's an antenna that you can raise and lower on the back. They basically have some rubber grommets wedged in between the antenna and the pack, so it'll stay where you put it. This one was sent to me by a collector that owns it to have several things fixed. First, the original green wire, which looked just like this, had gone stiff and brittle, so if you bent it, it would break. And also there was problems inside the battery box, but he had to get in there in order to replace the wire anyway. And the robot itself wouldn't stand without falling over backwards, so we knew that there were a problem in the leg linkage and or the feet combinations. So let's run it here before I take you through. I did a video on this exact same model, not this toy, but this same version of the toy 3 years ago. I'll put a link to that in the description down below. That particular one, I was just doing a repair on the wire into the battery box, so there weren't any inside pictures. This particular one, I took some inside pictures that I was working on it, and I'll slideshow those to you here in a second. So when you get it working, you got two D cells in here. You've got a latch that latches the door closed, and you have an on-off switch. As you can see, you've got walking action. I stopped it because I'm running out of table here. Let's go sideways here. It's a pretty good walker for something 66 years old. And having dual lights, a light in this lantern. He had a flashlight in his hand, a light up in the helmet. Let's take a look at the slideshow. Hang on, I'm going to be bouncing the camera around. So, when you open the door of the battery box, here's where the two D cells go. The first thing, in order to replace the wire, see this green wire here comes down and there's a knot, and the wire disappears underneath here and comes up to the switch part. So in order to get in there to replace that, first thing you have to remove is this metal bar, which crimps in two places, and it's to keep the battery box from expanding with when the batteries are pushing on the contacts. And then once you get that bar out of the way, you can see how the green wire, still knotted, would have come up and then connected into here. Now we can see someone's been in here before because there's some Sharpie felt tip pen marks on here, so someone was making notes of where wires went and stuff. These are original wires and they were extremely brittle and ready to break, so in fact this one had already broken off this connection. So I replaced those wires, plus put in the new flexible green wire. The cardboard insert, this is the one that was inside it, which lays over everything. This tab is already ripped off, so it was all sitting in there just kind of a shambles. I went ahead and ran it through the scanner and printed off a copy of it. And I'll be sending back the original plus the original brittle wire to the owner of this toy, but I'll be installing this one inside the battery box because I know it won't fall apart. So here we can see the new green wires coming up to the switch. Then I put in new flexible wires from the battery contacts to the switch. This whole switch plate, you can see, is held on with 4 tabs, like so. So the first thing you do when you're putting this thing back together is lay the wire in and then lay the switch part in, then put the cardboard in on top of the wire, and then these two battery contact pieces go in, and there are 2 tabs on each one that hold them in place, and once they're in, then you put the bar back in the top and recrimp it. So when you take the toy apart, here's some of the main parts. As you can see, the motor and the gears are up here. These are leg covers. They're non-load bearing. They're just cosmetic. The foot covers, and then the ratchet feet themselves. And this is the first thing, and the reason I had to take it that far apart was to get in to fix this linkage. See how this is bent? This is the rear linkage, so that means the robot was always leaning backwards, wanted to fall over backwards no matter what. So this had to be straightened out, and the one on the other leg was bent as well. Plus there's a bit of a bow in here, so we needed to straighten all those out. Here's a straight on look with the front off, where you can tell because of the flashlight and where the gun are. So you can see it's all metal gears. The pinion gear on the motor drives the crown gear, and then that gets reduced down. Got your two cranks up here for doing the leg linkage, and they extend on up to make the arms move. Here's a sideways, a little bit closer look. This is the back side. So the two green wires come through a hole in the body, and they'll solder onto these two tabs. This tab you can see here is also soldered to the frame, so that provides frame ground to the lights in the head and the light in the arm. And then this one will provide the hot wire for the bulb that goes up to the head, and the hot wire that goes into the arm. And the motor's down here, and of course as long as I had it apart, I lubed both motor bearing ends and sprayed contact cleaner in. So here you can see the rear leg linkages once I've straightened them all out. Got the bow out of this part, got the bent crank part out of there. These are just some pictures of the feet. There was damage done to them too. In order to bend the linkage, that means someone had to have slammed the feet pretty hard. Some kid, stomping it around. There has to be a bit of an intentional bend in the front. I don't know how to explain it. Some of this is damage, and some of it's original as a combination. So I had to get things adjusted back as well as I could. So here it is with the leg covers on, and the back part of the head shell is on. There are tabs in the crotch, here, in the middle, the shoulder, and up in the ears, and then the same thing around, that all have to be straightened in order to pull the front of the body off. A little bit closer view of it so you can see a little bit better. It's like the front one you saw before. This is going to come up, and the light is in the front half of the head, so that gets soldered on when you're ready to reassemble. And there we are out in the Robothut. Okay, that pretty much sums it up. I guess we can end, well, I can open it up and show you the inside with batteries in it as well, as long as we're doing this. There we are. I've also noticed something that has nothing to do with the toy, but just on Duracell D cells. I've had this happen, I think 3, maybe 4 times in the last 2 years. I'll have batteries that measure the full 1.5 volts when you put the voltmeter on them, but as soon as you put them under any sort of load at all, they're an open circuit. There's nothing there. And they would have worked before, then all of a sudden they have this weird condition where if you test them with a battery tester, they test good. But you put them in a toy with any sort of a load, whether it's just a light bulb or just the motor, boom, they're basically an open circuit. And a couple of times it's baffling because you go, the battery's good, but it's had me chasing, what's wrong with the toy, what's broken, what's shorting out, and in the end it ends up being one of the Duracells. I had it happen again on this one. It's the only reason I'm mentioning it. It's because it's just one of those things that if you have a toy that doesn't work and you know you've got good batteries, try some more batteries. They may not be as good as you were thinking. Can always be a problem.